when you go to look at colleges, this is an important thing to keep in mind. In colleges' eyes, not all students are created equally, right? Or not all students are created equal. A number of years ago when I visited Fordham, their process was when a student was accepted, they were rated from 1 to 6 by the admissions office. That was passed along to the financial aid office, and they were packaged accordingly. Meaning if it was a student they really wanted, either their need was more fully met, or even at schools that try to meet your full need, sometimes if it's a student they really want, it's all in grants. Whereas if it's a student who is on the bubble, there may be more loans in the package, not as many grants. Or sometimes they do what they call the polite accept deny. They accept the student, but they don't give them any money, so they know they're really not going to be able to go there. Okay? So again, make sure that you're applying to schools where you're wanted, right? To some schools where you know you're wanted. How can you figure that out? The College Board website really does have a lot of good information. If you go to the College Quick Search, put in the college name, you can pull up the statistics on a college. It'll give you the 25-75 split on the SAT, the bottom number, 25% of the accepted students scored below that, the top number, 25% of the accepted students scored above that. If you're above that 75, you know that they want you, right? They'll also, I believe they report the GPA as an average there, not in a range. I usually like range is better since people manipulate averages, but you know that if you're above their average, you're a student that they might want, right? So making sure that you have some schools where you know you're going to be in the top part of the admitted class, so you're going to get the best package possible. Okay? Another thing to do is to apply to schools in pairs, right? Apply to similar institutions so that in the end you can potentially compete financial aid offers. And while schools don't like to say they're going to negotiate, usually if you give them a reason to review your package, they will. And so they're not going to try to specifically match, but then they may ask, do you have any other information you didn't tell us about? Well, I had to pay for braces for a younger child this past year, or I have a parent who's in a nursing home, I had high costs for that. Whatever the circumstances are, they won't know unless you tell them, right? And so presenting that in the end, and usually it's not hardcore negotiating, it's framing it in a positive way. My student would really rather go to your school, but for $5,000 a year, $20,000, I can't justify, the additional expense. Is there anything you can do to help make this decision easier for us? Usually, they'll come back and they'll change your package. They won't always match it. Sometimes they'll match it. Sometimes they'll beat it. But the worst case is they say, no, there's nothing we can do, and you're in the exact same situation as you were before. They're not going to pull the aid away. Okay? And I talked a little bit before about the database I built of colleges. It's collegetreasure.com. And what we've done is again, across the country, we've called 1,200 schools. We're in the process now of expanding it. We like to get up to 1,700 is the goal, but right now we have 1,200 colleges with all the admission scholarship information. So you can put in a student's SAT, GPA, states where they want to go to school, and you'll find out all the private schools where they would be eligible for scholarships, the scholarship priority deadlines, which again are often different than the admissions deadlines, and then we also have the admissions deadlines, financial aid deadlines, all of the pertinent information, links to the school website as well as to the if they have a specific scholarship website, a link to that website. So again, it's a good way to find that financial safety, right? A private school where you may be eligible for a good amount of money. And one of the things when you decide, the type of school is knowing the student, right? How does the student learn best? Are they self-motivated? Are they going to be able to, get through if they're in a lecture of 400 students, right? And usually that's like an intro psych or an intro bio class, are typically the largest classes because everyone wants to be a doctor until they get into those classes or they change their mind, right? But those are usually the largest classes on any college campuses. So what happens if you're in that class of 400 students? Is your son or daughter going to go to class all the time, or are they going to end up skipping a lot of classes because you can, and then you get to exam time and I still have those nightmares, right? You walk by the classroom and it's the exam you're supposed to be taking you haven't studied for. Or do they need that smaller class, right? That individual attention where the professor is going to know their name, there's going to be more discussions where they're not going to be able to miss because it'll be noticeable. And sometimes that'll help you decide on it. They need that smaller private school, and sometimes if you go to the school that costs, maybe if it costs a little less, not a lot less, but they're not going to graduate, you don't really save any money, right? And so understanding what they really need to get through.